is up? Today I wanted to spend a few minutes, or maybe many minutes, talking about what it's like to be out of body. So there's a lot of YouTube videos and books and forums and blogs that will tell you how to achieve an out of body experience or how to reach the vibrational state, or they'll cover various separation techniques. But one thing I don't see quite as often is a detailed description of what it's like once you're out. So it's a question I get periodically. I thought it would be a good topic for today's video. I will preface my description with a couple of things. So first of all, some of this may not apply to everybody, but I'd be willing to bet that even though we're all different, the mass majority of this stuff will apply to anybody who achieves these out-of-body states. And the reason I say that is because based on everything I've heard, all the descriptions of people's experiences, all the books that I've read, we just seem to be wired the same way. There are a whole lot of similarities between what I experience and what everybody else that I've read experiences. So if you're somebody that achieves the out-of-body state regularly, I would love to hear, does this resonate with you? Do you experience the same things? If you're somebody who's still working on it, hopefully this will give you something to look forward to. All right, so the second thing I wanted to say is that as of right now, I spend 99.9% of my time in what Robert Bruce calls the real time zone, or what Monroe refers to as locale 1. And that is, it's like a simulation of the physical world, but slightly less solid, maybe. There are people that talk about the astral planes, these various levels and these heavenly realms, and I don't experience any of that. You know, to be honest, I've never even seen great descriptions of what any of that is like, or how to get there, any of this. And so I spend my time in this, what feels like a simulation of the physical world. I've only been in a couple of situations where it's felt unearthly, but these experiences are short enough and rare enough I can't definitively say I was on realm number or plane number 4, or however they're categorized. So if I ever make it out of the physical time zone, or the real time zone, if I ever make it out of the real time zone consistently enough to gain some kind of perspective, I will absolutely make a video and share that with you guys. But until then, I need to just report on what I experience, which is the real time zone. So to start out, I will say these experiences are hyper realistic, and so there's a few things that go into that. The first thing is that there's no lapse in consciousness, and that's regardless of the method that I'm using to induce these experiences. I'm awake during the induction. I'm awake during the separation. My mind is awake and alert during the actual experience itself. And when it's over, it feels more like a return rather than waking up. And so, whether I'm asleep and this is a dream and this is a hallucination, or whatever it is, being awake and alert through the whole thing, or perceiving myself as awake and alert through this entire thing, makes it feel incredibly real. And this is particularly the case when I use the indirect method. So when I roll out of body immediately upon awakening, I would say close to 50% of the time, I think that I've messed it up. I think that I physically have rolled out of bed, because it feels like I physically rolled out of bed and I've landed on the floor. And so I'll get up and I'll say, well, I'll go downstairs, I'll get a drink, I'll write down my dreams, I'll go back to bed with the intent to try again. And it won't be until I get downstairs, or I'm walking through my house, when I'll suddenly see some kind of anomaly that'll tip me off to the fact that I've actually succeeded. I'm in the out-of-body state and I just didn't realize it. So I would say that the direct method, that's not always the case. And the reason why is because there's times with the direct method where either I'm anxious or I get impatient, and I will separate while the vibrational state is still very rough, very jagged, these heavy, uncomfortable, very crunchy feeling vibrations. And if I separate during those early stages of the vibrations, the experience tends to be very dark, very gloomy feeling, very lethargic at the beginning. And it's almost like I've got a clear head and a drunk body. And if I do manage to get to my feet, I stumble around and I run into the door and I run into the dresser, and this can be remedied. This absolutely can be fixed through deepening. You just have to engage your 5 senses just as fast, as intensely as possible, and then get away from your body as far as you can, as fast as you can as well. Because what I've discovered is that physical proximity to your body it tends to, if you're very close in proximity, it tends to make the experience darker, less lucid, and it tends to end the experience more quickly. And from what I've read, this isn't just me. Other people have experienced the same thing, and I don't know why this is. But typically, by the time I make it to the end of my hallway, it's just as crystal clear as it would have been if I used the indirect method to get out. Something else to mention along those lines is that with the indirect method, after I roll out, if I think that I've failed, the experience is never dark and gloomy or short or anything while I'm near my body. It's almost like because I don't know that I'm out, my physical body's proximity to me just doesn't have the same effect, which is a really strange phenomenon. All right, so back to the direct method. If I do wait until the vibrational state rises in frequency, becomes much more smooth and much comfortable, this high-pitched, comfortable hum, to the point where I can see through my eyelids, I roll out of body and everything is clear from the very beginning. Again, I need to get away from my body quickly. The need to get away from your body just seems to directly tie to the fact that you realized you were successful. So let me know if that's the case for you, but that's the way it seems to be for me. All right, so something that you may have heard other people say, and which I can absolutely confirm, is that sometimes these experiences feel more real than waking life. And that's a difficult thing to imagine if you've never experienced this. But I've got a theory as to why that is, and I think it has to do with your senses. So when you're in this physical world, you're awake, you've got 5 senses, and they all operate independently to build a picture, like a compiled image in your brain of what your environment's like and what the world is like around you. But your 5 senses all work separately to build that picture, and your brain is compiling this information. Well, when I'm in the out-of-body state, it's much more like I've still got these senses, the same senses, but they seem to be intensified. For one thing, there's times where my peripheral vision will wrap all the way around my head and I can see behind myself without turning around. But not only are they intensified, they also seem to be more combined. So I can look at something that's across the room, and just by thinking about it, I can know what that thing smells like, I can know what that thing tastes like, and I can hear sounds and voices and noises that aren't audible. They're more taking place inside my head. So you've got these intensified senses, plus they're sort of just combined together, where you can experience your senses from a proximity that you normally would not be able to experience various interactions with your senses from. So that's that. The next thing I'll mention is talking. From day one, talking, using vocalization, using words and my voice, my vocal cords, is very difficult, nearing impossible. It is so hard to actually make a sound or a word, to form a word. I would get out of body, I would find somebody, I would try to talk to them, and I would try to use my voice. And maybe this is because you don't have vocal cords when you're not in your physical body. But I would try to use my voice, and either nothing would come out, or it would be this vague, mumbly, garbled, unintelligible sound that was completely useless when you're trying to communicate. So pretty quickly I realized that this wasn't going to work, and I started experimenting with different things and found pretty quickly that it is far more efficient, far easier to communicate through the sharing of thoughts and images and memories than vocalization ever could be. You can pass along a massive amount of information very quickly by sharing a picture or a thought. And there's not the same miscommunication that there would be in the physical world. So it's an incredibly efficient way to communicate. So let me know if you have that same problem with speech, but that has always been the case for me, and I think it always will be. I've actually just given up on vocalized type speech, and I immediately resort to this telepathic type sharing of information now. All right, so the next thing, manifestation. You've probably heard me say, and probably heard other people say, that the astral, or this out-of-body state, is incredibly thought responsive, and manifestation is very easy, and that is the case unless it's not. So there are times where I can manifest people that I want to see. I can change the weather. I can travel just by thinking about it. If I go through a portal or a door or something, I can immediately be somewhere else that I'm intending to be, and use this power of manifestation to change things. And there are other times where I try as hard as I can to manifest something and it just won't happen. Again, I don't know why. Don't know why it's so inconsistent for me. It might just be a matter of practice or a matter of the strength of my intent. Maybe I've got more power behind my intent when it works. Maybe I'm just overthinking it in the instances where it doesn't work, and the times where it does work, it's just very natural. I manifest it, and without even doubting myself at all, it just happens, and I expect it to happen, and it does. So more work to be done on that. But what I found is manifestation is easy unless it's not. All right, so the next thing, and this is a question that I get surprisingly often. It's a good question, but it's not one that I had ever thought of before other people started asking it. And that is, what do you wear in the out-of-body state? Are you wearing the same clothes that you wore when you went to bed? And the answer to that is, I don't wear clothes, but there's really not a need for them. Actually don't look at my body very often while I'm out of body, but the times that I do, I always look like a black silhouette with static, but the static has some kind of glittery shine type to it, a type of look to it. And then it's surrounded by typically a purplish indigo type halo around this black silhouette. And it's still human in form. I still have fingers. I still have arms and legs. And from what I've read, this eventually will go away when I lose the need to experience things as a human form. So if you read William Buhlman, there came a point where he decided, I don't need arms and legs. I don't need eyes to see. I don't need a nose to smell or mouth to taste things. There's really no need for a human physical form of a body. And from that point forward, he discovered that his favorite form to be in it was a teardropped shape, just ball of consciousness. And that's how he experiences the out-of-body state. And at this point, I'm obviously still more comfortable in my human form, and so I at least have that shape, even though I don't have the detail that goes along with it. Now, that one strange phenomenon that is an exception to that is when I look in the mirror. And when I look in the mirror, I think I've talked about this in the past, I always see the same thing, and I see this middle-aged, maybe mid-40s, maybe close to 50-year-old, pockmarked, chubby guy, red face, thinning hair, just really grumpy and sour-looking face. And I don't know what that means, but it's always the same face. So whether that's me from a previous life, whether that's me in a life to come, I hope not, or that's just how I picture myself, I don't know, but that's what I see when I look in a mirror. So as far as clothes, I don't wear any, but there really is not a reason to, and it's not something you ever actually think about. I imagine you probably could manifest clothes on yourself if that was something that was important to you. All right, so then I think probably the last thing that I'll mention, just to keep this thing watchable, is that when you're in the out-of-body state, it is things aren't the things that are important to you while you're awake or while you're in the physical world don't always translate to what's important to you when you're in the out-of-body state. So an example of that is I've talked about many times that I always go into these experiences with a plan of action, with a list of tasks that I want to accomplish, so I don't waste time while I'm in the out-of-body state. So I don't just wander around wondering what to do. And I highly recommend doing that, although I will say that sometimes that doesn't work out. So for instance, the other day, my task list, the thing on my task list was to find my cat. I wanted to try to interact with my cat, see if he could see me while I was in the out-of-body state, see if he reacted to me. Well, I got out, and suddenly that idea, the idea of looking for my cat, just seemed pointless and boring and like a waste of time. And so I did what I love to do more than anything else. I went through a wall, and I spent the rest of the experience flying, because that's never a waste of time. So this was something that prior to going to bed, I thought this is a perfectly valid task. This is something I think will be interesting, something I can report back on that other people might find interesting. But when I got in the out-of-body state, it didn't matter anymore. So I went with something that I really enjoy. Along those same lines, it is so easy to get distracted. So there have been times where I've gone in with a plan of action, and I walk into a room, and one particular instance, I walked into a room that had a chandelier in it, one of these chandeliers with the dangling crystals, and I just was mesmerized by it. The light was shining through the window, shining through the crystals, and making rainbows all over the walls, and I got up close, and I'm looking at all of these things, and I'm looking at the rainbows and the light reflecting and moving around on the walls. And I was just mesmerized for the rest of the experience. I just sat there probably for a good minute and a half, 2 minutes until this experience ended, just staring at the chandelier. And this is something I would probably in waking life look at and I'd be like, oh, yeah, that's nice, that's pretty. And then I would go on my way. But when you're in this out of body state, just things just capture your attention that you wouldn't expect to capture your attention. I talked about another experience a little while back where I was taken down into my kitchen, and it was nighttime, and this guide or this girl or this person that was with me, I don't know if it was a guide, but it was somebody who was showing me something, showed me the moonlight shining through the kitchen window through these little specks of dust that were flying through the air. And it was the most incredibly, profoundly beautiful thing I'd ever seen, to watch dust illuminated by moonlight. And I spent the rest of the experience looking at this dust floating in the air, catching the moonlight coming through my kitchen window. So in this state, it's surprising and interesting to see what kinds of things can distract you to the point where you just don't continue with whatever your plan of action was. So let me know if you have questions. Again, let me know if you notice any sort of similarities between this and between what you experience. If there's questions that people have, and repeated questions come up, I can definitely make another video and go into some more detail. But I figure this is probably good for now, because I think this is it's getting long enough. So that's it for now. As always, like, comment, subscribe, help me build this community, and I will talk to you guys again soon.